Organic farmer and activist chocolate maker Gillian Goddard, she joins us to discuss Decolonizing Cacao, an introduction to Indigenous, Colonial and Decolonial uses of cacao. And it's a workshop facilitated in two parts, December 12 and 13. And I'm sure to speak a lot more eloquently about it, we'll invite you, Gillian. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, DK.
Now, what's the focus of the workshop?
Well, we are undergoing a process that's way beyond cacao and chocolate, where we are examining the structures that we currently have in place and taking a look at whether they're still relevant for us. And I mean, obviously, there's enough indication that they're not really relevant, that the things that we have set up were actually set up with a completely different philosophy in mind. So one of the areas in which we're doing this examination is around the use of cacao and the whole industry of chocolate. So I was asked to come up with some sort of conversation about cacao by a group called Residency Unlimited, and they tend to take a deeper look at issues. And so we decided that looking at the issue of decolonizing cacao would be a good topic, since I've already been talking about it, mainly within Northwest Chocolate Festival and within tours that I do within Foreshore.
And I really appreciate the way that we can talk about one issue, but we can change that lens or prism to address it from this angle or this aspect. But with that in mind, though, I'll ask you, is this a lecture or an experience? And I give you the little softball because I saw that there were some packages that would have been sent beforehand to people who would have registered on time.
Right. So one of the things when we are decolonizing something, we have to look at, do we need to change the structure, not just the products? And one of the ways that I am working this into what I do is that this idea of a lecture format with this expert who's standing up in front of people and giving them all this information, all these ignorant folk, that's not a decolonial perspective. So we are doing it as a workshop. People did get kits, which contain some modern day versions of ways that Indigenous groups used to use cacao. So what we call the cocoa ball here, that really is very similar to the way that cocoa would have been ground thousands of years ago. So people would have received cocoa balls, they received some, what we call ruku, otherwise known as achiote. There was actually a drink that was made with ruku and cacao, so they got a bit of ruku. And they also got some roasted cornmeal. That's another way that cacao is drunk. So the whole idea of cacao having one or two or three different ways of being used, that's not really an Indigenous perspective. If you're growing up in a rich ecosystem, what's around you, you will use in many, many different ways. And so the kit allows us to talk about it while we drink, eat, taste it. So the first day, we're actually going to look more at the pre-colonial ways of using cacao. And then by the second day, we'll actually start talking more about what happened to cacao and how did it become what we now know as chocolate.
And I'm going to use the word appreciate again, and I'll ban myself from using it after. But I really appreciate the fact that, yes, you are sharing information, but it's also an immersive kind of thing. Because sometimes we, especially if we look at a classroom, we can take the information away from that tangible feel. Because I'm sure if you are talking about a cocoa ball and talking about the way that your fingers would stay in the way it would smell, those kind of interactions that you'd have while you're preparing it, it's very different having someone, okay, that's cool, and taking notes, as opposed to doing it themselves. And that tangible, that physical aspect will stay with you a little more. You create a moment, and that moment creates a memory where it resonates with you a little more.
Right, and you're involving all the senses, and it's not just a mind-brain experience. But also the other thing is, within a classroom or within a learning environment, there are people who are not the facilitator who will be coming to the table with lots of information. So we're actually expecting that within the workshop, there'll be other people who will have information to add that I actually wouldn't have, and would be able to deepen our understanding of the whole topic.
And I see you speaking and a bird just flew in beautifully. You know, I'm having a moment. But in terms of starting that decolonization, where do we start it? Is it a mind thing? Do we look at the supply chain? Do we look at the consumers? Do we do tutbagai? How do we start?
Yeah, well, Tupagai definitely. I'm actually taking a patois class these days, and that is such a good term. The truth is, from the minute that colonization started, we actually started trying to decolonize. So there has been resistance from the beginning to this way of looking at the world, this understanding of power and of asymmetry in relationships with humans and with non-humans. So I don't think it's something that, is starting in 2020. This is something that from the moment of contact, if there was a discrepancy in the power relationship, there would have been already attempts to extricate themselves from that type of power relationship. So it's an ongoing process. I think it's speeding up a little bit now compared to some other periods in history, but we are also slower right now than other periods in history. So we have to keep going, keep putting our heads down, keep putting our heads together, and really think about how we're going to create a situation that actually works better for more of us, including the non-human parts of our world.
Who are some of the people involved in the team putting this initiative together, Gillian?
Well, the truth is that anything that's made in the bag, the kit that's being received, that's a team. So the cocoa balls were made in Push, and the things that go into the cocoa balls are made by different farmers. There's sapot, there's cloves, there's nutmeg. Some of those things were not around at the time of a pre-colonial experience. But so the team comes mainly from the Alliance of Rural Communities, which is a collective, an agricultural farming collective that I'm part of, that mainly makes chocolate and cocoa products. So a lot of the inputs, we have cocoa butter in there, we have cocoa powder, we have drinking chocolate from Grand River. So there are a lot of people that actually participated in putting this together.
And some people might say that this is a process that is won in inches, as opposed to saying, okay, well, we need a big result. But in terms of doing that consistent incremental work, what do you want people to come out of these 2 days with, and for you to say, yes, it was worth it?
Right. Well, I think that when you live in an environment that you're getting a lot of your needs met from, which would have been happening in the pre-colonial period, you tend to have an openness and an experimental eye for the world around you. You look at things not in a limited fashion, but you're really looking to see what adventure, what innovation, what can I do with it? And what I really would like to do actually is to awaken people's desire to engage with the environment in which they are. Most of the people in the workshop are actually from North America, whether it's Canada or the US. There are a few people from Trinidad, but really and truly, I am hoping that when they're finished with the workshop, they can actually look around themselves. They don't have cocoa powder there, they don't have cocoa trees, but they could look around and see, how can we take this open and indigenous attitude to our own setting? How can we engage with it in a way that is reminiscent of the way that people engage with these worlds for thousands of years? And there are many people within our midst, people who are historically indigenous, who can actually help guide and show the way.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us and giving us that little insight and just continuing to fan that flame, Gillian, putting in the work, doing the work, and sometimes dragging us along, kicking and screaming. So thank you very much, Gillian Goddard, and we wish you that you grow from strength to strength. Bless you and your endeavors. Gillian Goddard on this side of the program, and we look forward to having another artist and activist in the person of Turunesh Raymond when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. As promised, we are joined by multimedia artist, educator, activist Turunesh Raymond. She's joining us to let us know what is taking place at the Foreshore past Movie Town if you are heading west. Thank you for joining us, Turunesh. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure indeed. What is the Seaside pop-up and what's the inspiration for it?
Okay, well, I would like to start with the fact that I had a lot of unfinished work at the workshop, and I started the process of completing them with the help of a young woman. See her there? Yes, and another one which she's not here. And and so basically managed to organize a volume of work. And then a friend invited me to do a pop-up. But when I went to the place was very nice, but it was the first pop-up, so there was nobody saying that that was a pop-up. There was no ad, nothing. So just out of the spur of the moment, I said to Imani, let's go to the Foreshore and let's take a chance and see what's happening, you know. And it's a place that I go often because I find it relaxing. I call it my therapeutic space. I go there to unwind and to find, you know, peace, inner peace, you know. And it has been okay. So people stops, look at the work, and like it, sometimes buy it, you know. And then I got an invitation by Pink Artwork, a gallery in Cipriani Boulevard, run by Fitzgerald. Oh, sorry, Fitzroy. Fitzroy, a young artist. So I'm doing that as well, which is really in the evening from about 4 to 8. But the Foreshore is fantastic. You know, you have a beautiful environment. You know, it's relaxing and it's very inspiring. So that's how it happened. At the spur of the moment.
And I can imagine, you said people stop, they look, sometimes they purchase, but you are sharing some of that peace and some of that relaxation with them, even if it's just to get an eyeful before they move on. But who are some of the team involved? So you spoke of the young lady, and is there is there anyone involved in terms of producing?
Yes, well, I wouldn't have been able to complete all those pieces without the help of these two young girls, women, Imani, also known as Faith Ayong, and Laurine Marin. They are both from Arima, and they have been coming to the workshop on a regular basis and learn as they were doing. So they get some of that. And they're also helping me with the pop-up. So they come and we all sell. And basically, we consider it to be like our business, so to speak, you know? Yeah.
And is it only at the Foreshore that we can find your pieces, your work?
Yes, well, my base is is at the Bois Academy, which is located by the Barataria Savannah. And so anybody is welcome to come there. Of course, you know, mask and distance observed. Otherwise, I will be at the various pop-up and or market accordingly. Yeah.
And give me a little more information about the workshops, please, because I see art as an end unto itself sometimes, but there's also the opportunity to help discovery of things that you wouldn't even know that you were there when you're trying to make a piece of art. So what do you use it for, and how do those workshops take place?
All right, well, the Bois Academy essentially is in fact a dojo where people come to train to martial arts. So there they practice stick fighting, jiu-jitsu, and other forms of martial arts. And that is the central building. But now the two people which are really in charge of the dojo, which is Rondell Benjamin and Chris Ali, they offered me a space, which is a building next to it, to use as a workshop. And what I do there, apart from doing art, I also teach young people, teach children, teach members of the community. So it's a kind of quid pro quo. And I'm so ever so grateful to those two guys for giving me this opportunity. Yes.
And we just saw a piece of the flyer. Is it that it's every Saturday from 11 to 4, or are there other days now? We say we're getting a little closer to Christmas and we have a little more time because school is finished. Some people, parents and teachers including, sometimes are saying they're very happy that school done for the hour. But are you all out on just Saturdays, or is it more than that?
Well, we have decided that because of the proximity of Christmas, we're going to be out there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Certainly from next week, because this week we are also doing the Cipriani Boulevard pop-up, which will not quite allow us to do all of those, you know. And then Sunday, there is another pop-up in Vincent Street, organized by Gillian Goddard, where people will be selling their local stuff, you know, like bread, like jewelry and so on. And I'm going to be part of that as well. And the background of this is that there's going to be a comedian show. Is that what they call it? Yes, some comedian will do a show, like Lisa Agostini and some others. So I'm going to be part of that. But as from next week, it's going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and what kind of times are we looking at on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
From 11 to 4. Yes,
no,
from 11 to 4.
One of the things that I saw on a flyer was mass or costume making. Is it that they're finished pieces or finished mass pieces, finished costume pieces that people can get, or is it something that can be tweaked at that point in time?
No. We have completed masks and costumes, yeah. And but we also have some more others which are not completed that can be customized accordingly to the requests. Both.
I know. Look, are you looking to increase that kind of interaction or engagement? Because yes, you say you have the two young ladies from Arima, or the two young women from Arima. Are there other people, or have people been reaching out to you? What's some of the feedback that you get when you're having those conversations on the Foreshore? People stop, they look. What are some of the things that they say?
Well, the main thing that they say is that they find everything to be very unusual. They've never seen it before, which I find it very encouraging. They love the energies of the colors I'm using. And basically, and the fact that I'm using recycled material by and large, this is what really people react to.
And what does that mean for moving forward? Because I think this is a time, this is a place, this is a space where people are looking at the things that they do and looking to see how they can do it different. Sometimes by necessity, sometimes just because people have the time. And in terms of saying upcycled art or taking recycled things to become something beautiful, what is there a message that you try to send or share while doing this?
Well, yes, I think that in spite of the fact that I've been doing it for a while, I think that because, like you say, the kind of circumstances we are living in, I think that people need to introspect and don't depend on others to try to make a living. Try to, you know, awaken your creativity. People can be very productive, you know, if they can only take a little time to think about it, and, you know, and organize your little business on the side. I think it's going to be easier than look for a job, because jobs are now scarce. They were scarce before, they are even scarcer now. And so I think that, I hope I can inspire people to pick themselves up and do what they know they can do and capitalize on it.
And Turonesh, we want to thank you for whetting our appetite while awakening our creativity with the work that you're doing. We want to bless you and yours. Thank you for your work that you're doing. We also want to thank you for joining us. So on behalf of the entire team, I'm DK Rosta. Enjoy your night.